We are up and running. Hey, welcome to the Scuttlebutt. I'm Rich Mellon, and I am having a great day. The heat broke last night, kind of, sort of. We had a little tiny wee bit of rain, which is like a millimeter. Oh, well, actually, be official, 1.1 millimeters of rain, which for all of our American fellows is about 1/25th of an inch.
About like that much.
Not even the thickness of a piece of paper. It was pathetic, but it's better than where it was. I may or may not be wearing pants today because it's still kind of hot and humid, but I want you to join me in welcoming our guest today from Alaska, Kurt Lockwood. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm great. Send that break in the heat this way. It was 90 yesterday. We're probably going to be over that today. I've got a 10,000 acre fire burning within 40 miles of my house. So it's a little hot and muggy or smoky this morning.
It's really weird. Like, I mean, of course, first thing that everybody beat the drum on is that it was climate change, and it's not. It's actually a really cool combination of 5 things happening at once. And it's the best description I got of it after, researching through it all and everything was that it's a reverse of the Santa Ana winds. Yeah. The Santa Ana winds that happen in California, and they blow on shore and dry everything out, start fires, spread fires, and that. Well, this is happening on the backslope of the mountains, and it's a reverse, but it took 5 things all landing together to make it happen at once. And it's actually kind of cool. If people could just get over the hysteria of the climate change stuff and that, and actually pay attention to what's going on. This is a once in several centuries occurrence, especially here. We hit first time ever since I've been keeping records now. We were over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is unbelievable. Like, I mean, as a kid, you're running around, you're bare feet and half naked most of the time. In the summertime, if it was warm or whatever, it's got to be 100 today. Nobody ever knew. Nobody even had a had a thermometer on the wall. Nobody cared, but you all thought it was 100. Well, then when something like this actually happens, and we have the records come out. Well, this is the first time ever. We hit 100.4 or something, and
wow.
Out at my place, was hitting like 111 and that, but you'd never know how accurate what you've got is or anything else. And you can be in a little microcosm, because I know, like last night when the thunderstorms marched up out of the south, and that we were like right in the middle. There was a big series of cells that went to the east of us and others to the west of us, and we got next to nothing. Some people I know got a lot of rain, like not very far from here, got a lot of rain. So this is the way it goes. You were first. Let's talk about, now that I've wandered everywhere already.
I love it.
I'm on top of the game. I want to talk about, you like most people, when you got to Alaska, you weren't born there. You came from somewhere else, and you'd sent me a really nice story of how you got here. I asked you, I said, give me a little bit of information on how you got here. And I guess I should say we met through trappinginc.locals.com.
Yep, absolutely.
And I found it fascinating, your story, mostly because I really strongly identify with it. You were come from Michigan, and you can tell us about that in just a minute, but just the fact that you knew very young what you wanted to do, and you took quite the route to get there, and you couldn't become a Canadian, but right. You did better. or as good.
I don't know, sometimes. Yeah.
But tell us about that.
So grew up in I guess it'd be, let's see if I can get my right map out here for everybody. Right about there. So central northern lower peninsula. So not a troll, not from the UP. I think although visits to the upper peninsula of Michigan along the Lake Superior shoreline is kind of what in my mind as a little kid was, wow, this was true wilderness, which it really is. But you're always longing for more and more isolation and more wilderness. So I kind of attribute a lot of the upper peninsula to that. But yeah, I grew up just absolutely great agricultural rural setting. My high school class was 63 or 83. I always forget, but a real small class. I had we were one lot off a beautiful inland lake, and I had 5 more lakes out my back door that I could get to by pedal bike or later by little dirt bike or however it was. But the woods were my back door, and literally outside every morning, wandering the woods. And if I was on a lake somewhere, I could hear my mom's high-pitched shrill calling me home for dinner. And if I didn't make it, it really wasn't that big of a deal. She knew I was out getting muddy, playing in the water somewhere. But yeah, it was fantastic. And I don't know what it drives from being a little kid, but both my folks just say, God, since you were little, you've just wanted to go to the mountains, go to the wilderness, go. And like I said, there was a series of books I read as a young kid, and about a Canadian Mountie chasing bad people by dog sled across the Yukon Territory. And the series of books just really, really set with me. And I'm like, that's what I'm gonna do. But like I wrote you, my folks sat down and said, well, there's this place called Canada, and we're not there. Although my dad worked for General Motors for 35 years. So I knew, if you went across Ontario or under the Detroit River, you could get to Ontario and get better pizza over there. And you could drink before you were 21, just make it back kind of safe. But so I knew, this place called Canada, but they described Alaska to me, and I'm like, Yukon Territory, Alaska, still United. Yep, that's where I'm gonna go. And it took me a while to get here, but hey, here we are.
Well, I like that because
a lot of years later.
Well, we shared an author for sure, because I read the same Jack London, Call of the Wild, all that kind of stuff. We were a little more tightly connected to it. I mean, we didn't realize, as you realized that you weren't in the wild, we didn't realize that we were in the wild. Like it was it was just that kind of thing. As I've said before, I was 18 before I ever ate beef. And everybody ate moose and deer. Elk really just came into this country at about the time I was turning 15, 16 was about the first time that elk showed up. Now there's lots and lots of elk here. They've been very successful with the agriculture and that. So we shared a lot of that, and I knew that what I was going to do when I grow up, I did not have no idea of my career path or TV or anything like that, or that was crazy stuff to talk about when I was a kid. Because nobody had a camera, like not even an old Brownie still camera, let alone what we have today. Nobody knew how fast the world was going to accelerate through time and space, but I knew that I was connected to this world, and that this is where it was going to be. And I always find it so fascinating how other people from other places, whether it's Michigan, which is a gorgeous place, or North Carolina, which is gorgeous, and all those people, they have this life and this life road that they travel and how they get there. I find it fascinating. I do. I really do. So you decided.
Alaska is a huge melting pot in and of itself. You meet those people all over the place. A good group of my friends are people that were born and raised here who have no idea what they have out their backyard. I've got a dear friend that I don't think has wandered more than a couple hundred miles from home, and he's never been north of the Brooks Range to see the Arctic caribou herds and the muskox on the gravel bars and the grizzly bears out in the the endless tundra and all the way to Prudhoe Bay. And I'm like, I can't spend enough time in this state in itself is just too big to get explored all in one lifetime, but I'm going to try it.
It is gigantic. A lot of people don't understand. You roughly cover what, about a third of the US continental US? That would be the size of Alaska.
Yeah. Texas would make a nice size island.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what? I mean, I follow one of your representatives, Mike Kronk.
Okay.
Is that name familiar? He's just newly elected in this last election, and he's been posting on Facebook and that. So I've been following him, and I just find it fascinating. I mean, my mind is the original junk bin. That junk drawer that your mom hid everything in, but you could always find what you needed to eventually.
Yeah.
That's my mind. And so I find it fascinating to follow along with his escapades and what's going on what do you call it? House of Representatives? Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Okay. In the House of Representatives and the different challenges that everybody's facing. The world today is so different, and Alaska has a very unique model, I guess is the best way to look at it. Like
Yeah.
I mean, you all have subsistence rights here in Canada. We would call them subsistence rights, and if you live in the right condition or have the right history or genealogy or whatever, you have the right to hunt or fish without a license year round. In some cases, it's controlled by geography, but not always.
Right.
But everybody in Alaska has that right, correct?
I can't say for sure because where I live, I have no subsistence rights, so I've never even really looked into it. But it's based a lot of where you live and what resources you have surrounding you and whether or not the model fits. But they can open and close those. But yeah, most people living in rural Alaska have access to subsistence hunting and fishing rights.
Where exactly are you, Kurt?
I am located just a smidge north of, I live in Fairbanks. So it's central, about as central Alaska as you can get.
Right dead in the middle. And I had a guest that was from Delta Junction.
Yeah, the Alaska Viking, I think is who he was. Yeah, so 100 miles down the road. Yep.
Okay, so you guys
we've probably shared a number of duck streams together, shooting mallards, and not even knowing each other was there, other than passing in a boat and freezing. So,
but you're kind of in the middle of the country that sees the worst weather, right?
Boy, I don't know. Ask my friend that lives out in King Salmon, where it's a calm day if it's only blowing 35 knots, kind of thing. But the interior tends to be the kind of the coldest, but I wouldn't call it the worst weather by any means. It's where if it's 30 below here, I can guarantee it's 50 below up north on the coast. I have access to endless amount of rivers and trail systems. I don't live in Anchorage and deal with all the chaos and the high rises down there, although their accessibility to the Kenai Peninsula and world-class fishing is a little more than me, but I'd much rather catch a 20-inch grayling and not see a person all day than land a 60-pound king with 400 boats lined up to drag through the same hole. But that's just me.
True. Whenever a good secret gets out, it ruins it. But to get back to the Alaska model in that, like I was reading that you guys share in or everybody gets a share of the resources that Alaska pulls in.
It is there you're getting into politics and how they draw the money, how they manage the account, how they divvy it out, but it's the permanent fund dividend, and it's all based on revenue from oil shares. And you go back to Governor Jay Hammond and all the history of how it came about, and now it's kind of this constant, I don't want to say fight, but everybody's got a say in where it comes or how it's going to get distributed, what's the future for it. But every year, every Alaskan that qualifies gets a dividend check is what it is. But it's enough to put maybe a tank of fuel oil in your house, or still go gasoline for the season or something like that. But it's funny how dividend sales, the Walmart sales for flat screen TVs go up exponentially. It's it'd be funny. Hey, listen,
I'm in an oil
save
problem.
Save that the entire. It's nice though for our two kids that Alaska offers a savings plan for the university through that. So every year it's like they don't even know it exists. Here, your dividend, you live in Alaska, but by the time they graduated school, it's helped out with education. I just had my oldest daughter graduate a 4-year degree in 3 years, and did so debt free, which is kind of highly unlikely in these days. But that's
for her.
That's a byproduct of the dividend. Over the years, she was smart with that, and it's good. So now on to degree 2, darn it.
Hey, Rich here. Sandy and I are pleased at the rapid growth of our exclusive community, Trapping Inc. at locals.com. We created the community to connect more closely with our fans, friends, and supporters without the interference and censorship of social media companies. Because this community is subscriber exclusive, there is no censored photos, shadow banning, and deplatforming as happens on Twitter and Facebook. Trolls are non-existent, as not a one will spend a nickel and put their money where their mouth is to protest on a paid site. You know it. We are steadily moving all Trapping Inc. YouTube videos and podcasts as quickly as time and bandwidth allow. We're tickled and surprised to see how large of library we must move. As well, we are sharing articles on trapping and guns and shooting. Our new TV series, Married to the Hunt, videos are here too. Hours and hours of never before released to the internet hunting and fishing from around the world. TrappingInc.locals.com will be the exclusive home of all Trapping Inc. content from the past and into the future. What else is there to do? Well, there's a forum for everyone to post pictures on and interact. You can message us directly on TrappingInc.locals.com, as well as interact with all the other subscribers. These are all people with common interests. Get in here. This whole venture is about taking the Trapping Inc. TV community to the next level, building a community of shared interest and interacting with all of our friends. Who knows where we can go from here? Just go to locals.com and sign up for a free account. Then search for Trapping Inc. and subscribe for $5 a month. That's it. Go to locals.com to open a free account and then subscribe for $5 a month to Trapping Inc. Help us spread the truth about a way of life and the responsible, ethical management of the wild resources. TrappingInc.locals.com. Now back to the show.
Okay, looks like we are reconnected. Sorry about that, folks, but
No.
I would complain to my internet provider, but they tell me it's the heat. In the winter, they tell me it's the cold. If it's sunny, it's the sun. You know what I mean? There's never a reason that makes any sense.
Never is.
So you ended up heading to Alaska when?
Fall of 1994, I believe. Left Michigan, kind of college was wrapping up some, just needed some changes in where the life was going to take me. So I figured, that looming Alaska dream was kind of always out there. And I used education as a great excuse to tell my parents of why I wanted to go and where I was headed up. So I applied to the University of Alaska Fairbanks Wildlife Biology program, got accepted, packed my bags, not knowing a soul up here. And here we are, 2021, right?
It's like Alaska is full of the last pioneers, isn't it? I've heard this story that nobody knew anybody there, but they were headed for Alaska. That's cool.
Yep. And boy, it's just a network of friends and we all have similar stories. And I've never met a more gracious group of people in all the country. Not to say they're not out there, and I've met wonderful people all over this wonderful world. But as soon as I landed and, hey, you're from here and you're going to, it was, people inviting you over for dinner, people inviting you for snowmobile ride or snow machine rides and airboat rides and everything. Just come along, be part of our lifestyle up here. It was great.
So what did you go to school for in the University of Fairbanks?
I enrolled and eventually graduated in the wildlife biology program. So,
okay. Yeah. So what degree did you get? Did you have a specialty? Tell me. No,
so it is in wildlife biology is the degree. So it was a 4-year degree. Most people get that degree that are seeking to go on to master's or PhD programs, work for either different I guess environmental groups, or Fish and Game is kind of the big, Alaska Department of Fish and Game is the big biology based backing for all the fisheries and resource management up here. And so that's where majority of my consumptive user friends ended up. But being a little older, starting school up here, I worked a couple summer projects doing peregrine falcon research out on the Tanana River, living remotely, watching peregrines and running jet boats. It was pretty awesome. But learning, that there were master's students and PhD students out there that were like scraping by just to get grants to get paid for, seasonal work and stuff like that. And I'm like, geez, I don't know if I want to do this for another 4 years. I should probably look for a real job and start doing that. So at the point I got my, my 4-year degree, I kind of looked into the master's or the PhD side of things. And ultimately when I was in Alaska, Michigan, I really wanted to be kind of a DNR conservation officer kind of guy. And so eventually I was thinking, well, I can use that, do the wildlife trooper bit and maybe put some enforcement and biology into work. And yeah, so graduated with a biology degree and became a copper, I guess.
So that here we would call them conservation officers, and you enforce the laws and the of the game laws, and other, like, I don't know what compare the two systems, but they can even, a conservation officer can even give you a ticket for not wearing a seat belt, or for drinking and driving, any of that stuff in the bush.
Yeah, so it's interesting so it's interesting in Michigan to see growing up, like I said, the conservation officers were all DNR based, and I don't know, outside of meeting them out fishing and stuff like that, I had no interaction with them whatsoever. Alaska wildlife troopers are completely different. They are a trooper first, which is all law enforcement based throughout the state of Alaska. So you can get a wildlife trooper, respond and take care of a domestic violence situation, make a drug bust, write you a speeding ticket, and investigate your wanton waste on a moose. But they are like jack of all trades. Their primary mission is wildlife enforcement, but with numbers being down throughout the state, they wear both hats equally well. So especially if it's there's a lot of wildlife troopers that are based with just the sole person out in a remote post. So it's, they have to go and do a death investigation somewhere. It's not like, well, I can't do that because it didn't involve a moose or a caribou. No, they do all the work of a regular trooper, but their primary mission is fisheries and wildlife safeguard.
So you really did get the RCMP job.
Well, that's not what I'm doing. I had a friend that became, I was a trooper for a day, but I have a dear friend that is a wildlife trooper located in Western Alaska. And when he got this job early on, he says, man, it's the greatest gig on earth. However, I don't get hunting seasons off. It's like my busiest time of the year, and it kicks my butt. So I was like, well, maybe that's not what I want to do, because I get 3 days off and I get my weekends and I get my hunting season. So went another path, but that's slowly widened to an end. Thank goodness.
Well, and I mean, the original RCMP stuff was just that. They were out in the middle of nowhere, and they did everything. They did everything from drunken disorderlies to investigating animal crimes, all that kind of stuff. Some of the stories you read, I read the one just the other day where these two guys took off, and they were in northern Saskatchewan, and they did like 580 miles by dog sled. And at one point it got too cold for the dogs to run, and they figured it was like 60 below or whatever, so they stayed in the tent for the day.
Yeah.
And they even had, but in the report, I was reading the actual old report, and he talked about how much they took for food and all that, what this whole circuit that they did through all the lakes and all this kind of stuff, what it actually cost, but then this day their meal allowance didn't cost nothing because they were a guest at somebody's place and stuff like that. I thought, oh my God, these guys were so tough and they were so virtuous. Like it was unbelievable. I mean, today it seems like everybody has their own axe to grind and everything, but these people were really just doing what they were supposed to do. It was fascinating. But you didn't end up on that side of it. You stuck mostly to the wildlife stuff.
No, I didn't do. Yeah, no, I just became like just a normal copper, which you'll probably get like more hate messages now and you're on Trapping Inc. But
I don't care.
No, I know. So no, I've just been in plain Jane general law enforcement for 23 and a half years.
Oh, okay. See,
I've done everything from just regular patrol training. A good part of my career was involved handling and instructing police canines, which was just a huge reward. That was a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty scary at times, but pretty good. Did a good long stint on SWAT, and kind of I bounced to a little smaller, quieter department in my last couple of years here, but I'm like their single major crimes detective, and I get to just look at the unfortunately the worst side of people that are bad experiences and people having gone through some really rough times for the kind of crimes that I'm investigating now. And then but that's that's coming to an end here in about a year and a half.
You're just about to retirement.
I am, yeah. I'm the last, my generation-ish. State of Alaska has gone through several tiers of retirement, but I'm the last that has a defined, my generation's the last one that has a defined benefit. So at 25 years, I get, X amount of my highest 3 paid years and medical coverage, which medical's a huge part of it, especially at not being super old when I at 25 years. So it'll be nice, but it's ridiculous. The system is, it doesn't make sense for me to stick out any longer than 25 years because I'm entitled to X amount of money. It basically goes down to working for, like $13 an hour if you do the math right. I'm like, I can go stock shelves at Walmart in the middle of the night and make more than that. But
everybody with defined benefits, which the world can't afford anymore. So that's why there are, why you are the last generation to have defined benefits. But everybody, I mean, they quit, they take their pension, and then they go do something else. They
absolutely
or whatever, and you can't blame them. I mean, you're way too young a man to just quit. Like, I mean, I remember I have so many old friends that they would farm until they were 70 or 75, and then they would quit. They'd be dead in a year. And
yep.
I just got to believe that it was because they were no longer stimulated. They were no longer connected with life, For a lot of people in Alberta, especially when you get out into the prairies and the farming and that, when they leave there, they go to BC and, dreaming about, retiring in BC, whether it was in the Okanagan or, it's where it's warm and sunny and all that, but none of them made it very long,
no.
And I think that's the thing, people talk to me and say, I just celebrated my 62nd birthday. Well, when's retirement? What is retirement? I said, I'm working right up to the reception of my funeral,
Yep. Yeah. And work doesn't have to be work.
No.
I mean, that's, yeah.
No. Do I look like I'm working today?
Yeah, right.
So
driving an Argo is pretty rough. Yeah.
Well, sometimes, yeah.
I know. Yeah.
You get those experiences there, don't you?
Yeah, sure do.
Sometimes when they call for Officer Kurt, you've got to get in a jet boat, or you got to get in a airboat or an Argo or whatever to go do it, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, everything's so remote here. You never know how you're going to get there.
Let's talk about the life that comes with, no matter what job you've got in Alaska, there's a special life that comes with it. All those great outdoors. Yeah. Let's talk about that some. You got
absolutely
into trapping.
I did. Yeah, that was part of the byproduct of going to school. A dear friend of mine who, got me into trapping, and literally it was hilarious. We're walking back. I think I'm heading to the dorm, and he's, hey, I got something to show you. You want to look what I got in my truck, And most people are, what the heck are you doing over there? And so he's got, this red fox or two that are, frozen because he'd snared them. And I'm like, they're way bigger than I thought. I think these things are huge. Oh my God, this is gorgeous. Well, we're talking by the truck, and another one of my friends who works for Fish and Game now, he's, oh yeah, I got, a lynx the other day, or 2 lynx. I'm thinking, this is crazy. I got to be able to do this. And so my buddy with the two red foxes, like, I got another check. Hey, after class this week, let's go out and you can walk the line with me. And I'm like, oh man, here I go. And I'm thinking, we're out for the big adventure, and we end up, crossing over the hill. We're within 10 miles of Fairbanks proper, although being a pretty isolated little valley, not not multi-use trails. That's a topic I'll go into at a later time, but it was a little creek drainage that walked back in, and it was nothing more than a little foot loop in a thick alder patch. And of course the fox are running that, so he had his little snares out, and I think maybe a marten pole or some set of something to catch a critter that ran up the tree. He had no idea what it was either, but man, we're going to try it. And so we came across an open beaver hut, that foot trap, that foot trip out there. And it was so cold, and the creek had froze to the bottom, froze its food cache out. So they basically came out of the top of their hut, and they were swimming for survival. So it was 20, 25 below out there, and you got a pair of beaver that are swimming perpetually inside their hut, the only open water, and that's the only way they can keep it open. But they're coming out to go get fresh wood because their cache is froze. and then going back in. But he's like, I had a couple snares on this. I can't catch them. I don't know what to do. So we brainstormed this whole scenario, and Dean Wilson, bless him, who's passed, but boy, that's a history in Alaska of itself. Is Dean Wilson is the father of interior trapping. His book is coming out again. We found like 500 copies, so I'll try to get you a book.
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
a very cool book. Him and Ada ran a fur basic buying business out of a hotel room here in Fairbanks, and was just an old timer that you could go get information from. So my trapping buddy back, the day, Leo, I think we need a different trap for what we're doing. This snaring thing isn't working out. And so we run to the Klondike Furs and we buy a 330, not knowing how to use a 330, how to set a 330, not having enough money to like buy setters or anything like that. All right, we're gonna head back to this. So we're again out at 20, 25 below, and we get this trap eventually set just out of sheer trial and error. Get it situated and what we think is the perfect set. And these beaver are like 5 feet away watching us the whole time. Come back the next day, of course, the 330's pushed out of the way and sprung with a big log in it. Like, okay, we got to figure this out. So we put it back. Well, now you're dealing with a 330 that's covered in ice. And yeah, 2 people pushing each on a spring and trying to, it was how we didn't both get caught in it is miraculous. We get it set, come back the next day, and lo and behold, we have this just big, beautiful beaver slapped in there. They were 2 huge beaver. So it's in there. So now we're like, okay, now what? How do we get this thing out? So of course, it dawns on us that we probably want this out before it hair freezes to the steel. No one taught us that, but that just makes sense. So here we are again, fighting with the iced over, frozen half, watery beaver. Our hands are soaked. We get it out. Well, we're wrestling with this beaver to get it out of this 330. We hear this like little squeaky noise, and its mate is coming out of the hut to check to see what's going on. Like, hey, how you guys doing? Oh, what are you doing with Fred over there? He doesn't look so good. And we're up to the point where we're like literally scurrying this beaver back in the hole, going, oh, I feel so bad. Like this poor thing's just watched its wife or husband get smacked, and what are these 2 strangers doing to it? So eventually we get it reset and we go hide in the bushes. It's kind of like, okay, what's it gonna do? What's it gonna do? And we watched, the trigger, and boom, we watched that 330 in action. And I tell you what, not ever seeing it in person, how quick and how, the humane factor behind a body grip trap was amazing. And that was even a cheap 330 back in the days, but it was something to see. And after all the handling that we did with an ice covered trap, we gained just a little bit more respect for what it could probably do to our hands. And yeah, it was amazing. So yeah, that was my first, our 2 beaver that we drug out, and then the whole new lesson in skinning and fleshing. And then that was the next year we thought, wow, we're going to become big foot trappers together. We're going to go out and rule the country. And so we bombarded around the countryside on snowshoe. And here we are, big wildlife students that had never seen a marten track before, but we were after marten, and we kind of read some books and knew what we were doing. And we're off in the woods and we find these tracks. And so we're like, I don't know what those are. Do you know what those are? I don't know. So, all right, run it through the dichotomous key of, well, they're not snowshoe hare. They're not squirrel. They're not porcupine. What else is kind of alive in the winter? Well, it kind of has a hop of a mustelid. I'm going to go with marten tracks. Let's set a marten trap here. And went to school, came back like 3-4 days later, and we had 3 marten hanging and maybe 9 a dozen sets hung out of this valley. So we thought we were like just on top of the world with marten trapping. So our friendships remained ever since 94. We've done tons of duck hunting together. That was what really brought our love together. But we did snow machine trapping, but did a lot of snowshoe trapping through college together, which was, then you're learning all that. You go out and you catch your first lynx when cycle comes high, and you see that track, and the mink trapping on the sloughs that have salmon runs, and missing lots of attempts on otter, but it got us out. We spent countless hours and miles on snowshoe, just loving what this country had to give.
And isn't it amazing? Those are things you never forget. You'll have
No.
spent a lot of big money on stuff over time, whether it's a vehicle or whatever. But that kind of stuff there, those experiences, those life experiences, you just never forget them, and your kids never forget them either. You know, like I
Oh
mean,
no,
it is so. So my kids come home, and they're all in their late 30s now. They're all over 35. The oldest is just about pushing up on 40, and it's always the stories about when we went fishing or where we went hunting, or do you remember this? And I look at the walls and the pictures on my in my office here, and there's a bunch of them. You know, my daughter holding up a moose horn of a little bull, and you know, and it's snowy, and she's wearing an old pair of my camo and that kind of stuff. And you know, those are just things that there is no price, no value, no acceptable comparison to, you know, the how important that stuff is. But you at some point must have trapped a wife.
Ah, boy. Yeah. Back in Michigan, I moved up here for 2 years, and yeah, I kind of did the long distance thing for a couple years. And then she came up for a spring break, and she was sicker than a dog. I was into mountaineering at the time, and I had a long weekend. So I'm like, here, put these skis on and carry this heavy backpack. We're going up this glacier. I've got a group of guys, and we're going to go climb a mountain this weekend. And you can just stay in the tent and read a book and like have a warm meal for me when I come back, because I'm going to go do all the work, right? And so she thought, okay, I guess I'll do that. Well, she kind of got a bug. So I make her ski up this glacier, sicker than a dog. She does a good job getting there, but stayed in the tent sick all day while I go climb a mountain, having the fun part of it, and came down with my friends. And so, but yeah, so after that trip, she decided that, all right, even sick as she could be, and skiing up a glacier and enduring, you know, a 20 below night in a tent. And so, yeah, it was just the most amazing engagement gift ever. It was a 20 below sleeping bag and some carabiners for climbing, and said, honey, you want to live up here with me? And the rest is history. So yeah, we've been together a long time. When we first started dating in Michigan, I gave her a disclaimer that most of my girlfriends didn't make it through high school. So not in a bad way, but I feel bad now, but I stood up more dates on Friday, Saturday nights because of the duck blind, the deer blind, the ice fishing hut, you know. So I still remember one night we were tracking a deer my buddy shot with his bow, and I happened to be like through the back farm of my girlfriend at the time. And her dad comes out, and I think, oh God, he's gonna be mad that we're back here. And Kurt, is that you? Yeah, I'm out here. Craig shot a deer and we're getting it through. Do you know Tracy's been in her room all night, like crying because you were supposed to go to the movies or go do whatever it was. Like, yeah, but Craig shot a deer. He's like, all right, I'll go back, get my flashlight and help you guys, but it'll be all right. So I gave my wife the full disclosure that, hey, I'm sorry, there's some things that take a backseat during certain hunting seasons. And so lo and behold, she took hunter ed at the time, passed her hunter education, and it still is a huge passion, is waterfowl hunting. And she showed up with a 12 gauge shotgun and said, I guess I'm going with. And oh, okay, I guess you're going with. So yeah, so you know, a couple kids later, couple generations of Chesapeake Bay retrievers, and yeah, so we're looking forward to the next chapter. So
You know, I mean, I have a similar story, and like you, I married outside my species. and like you, my wife had absolutely nothing to do with the wild. She never hunted, fished, or anything, or you know, until she met me. And it is amazing, though, how much of a binder in a relationship the wild can be. You know,
yeah,
that share, that love of the wild. You know, you you have two daughters, I believe.
yep. Yeah. And yeah, when you say that, it's funny because yesterday it was 90 degrees. We hopped in the kayaks. There's a local little lake nearby it's got a campground on it. It'll be super busy this weekend, 4th of July. But yesterday was kind of that break. There's not a whole lot of people out yet. And yeah, there's tons of rainbow trout and landlocked little silvers in there. So I'm content. I'm just paddling along the shore, and I'm trying to get rainbows as fast as I can. And that's my mission. It's go out and enjoy the day, but I'm fishing. I want to catch fish. And, my daughter's thinking, I don't know. I'm having fun watching the ducks and the baby geese and the stuff over here on the island and a beaver swimming. And there's my wife, just like enjoying the sun. Just give me the sun and the tranquility. And I'm like, everybody can enjoy it on a different level, but we're all out enjoying. I had to be the fisherman at the time. But yeah, she was just as content to probably trying to take a nap out there in the sun. So it's pretty cool. It's just being out.
It's everybody's way of recharging. I know Sandy and I
Yeah.
often talk about when we go to the trap line and when it's cold. I mean, I still trap. That's what I'm going there for. And I will put in, over the 3 days that I'm there, I will put in, 40, 50 hours sometimes, depending on how things go. And I come back and I should be physically exhausted because I'm sleep deprived and everything else, but I'm charged and ready to face the world. And Sandy might have, just spent the weekend in the cabin if it's that, that cold and that she doesn't get out, and she comes back the same way. We both get what we need,
Yep.
You took up flying. Because I know, very envious. I see your pictures of you flying into remote lakes and all that kind of stuff to go fishing and hunting and trapping and all that. That is so cool.
It is.
Yeah, that's what everybody dreams of doing in Alaska is that remote stuff. But you've had a few bumpy rides.
Hey folks, Rich from Trapping Inc. TV here. And we all have our idea of the perfect morning. You know what I'm talking about. For me, the perfect morning starts with the aroma and flavor of freshly brewed Old Smokes coffee. Studies have shown that just the smell of fresh coffee can boost brain activity. No kidding. Well, that's certainly no secret to me. I can barely talk before that first cup. Just ask Sandy. I'm a dark roast man, and Old Smokes Coffee's darkest roast, Stout Maple, is what gets my day in gear. Extra dark, it's strong, aromatic, and smooth. Gets me revved up for whatever the day throws at me. Old Smokes roast their coffee over wood fires, the old-fashioned way. Wood roasting takes more time, much longer than modern hot air roasting. Slow roasting over wood takes the bitter out of the bean and imparts a heavenly taste and aroma from the wood smoke. Old Smokes makes a roast perfect for each person. There are 5 roasts, from light to extra dark, each roasted over a different wood for a unique flavor. Did you know the darker the roast, the lower the caffeine content? It's true. Caffeine is a volatile oil that evaporates with roasting. The lightest roast has the most caffeine, and the darkest roasts have the most flavor. Right now, you can order from their online store and use our promo code RICH, that's RICH, and get 10% off your entire order. Pretty simple. Just go to www.oldsmokescoffee.com, that's OLE smokescoffee.com, and use the promo code RICH. That is promo code RICH for 10% off your entire order. And now let's get to today's show.
Yeah, there was, you look back on life in some places, if you could rewind or go back, but you can't. So you just got to bring who you brought dance with who you brought, right? So, but I was back on one of my little inland lakes, and I had a group of neighbors that absolutely took me under their wing for hunting and fishing and such. My dad, corporate businessman, worked in Detroit, really odd relationship without going too much there. He worked for General Motors, like I mentioned, but so his family didn't have to live in Detroit, in the big city, and everything that came along with that. A lot of the downstaters in Michigan vacation and do weekend warrior type stuff up to inland lakes in northern Michigan. So he had a small little deer hunting and snowmobile cabin up there that eventually became our home. So my dad, throughout most of our entire childhood, would commute, live with my grandma, work for General Motors for Monday through Friday. By Friday afternoon, he was out of work and at the doorstep. So I had weekends with both my parents. It's probably the best marriage ever because they were only around each other, 3 days a week. So it was pretty nice. But I never, it's kind of an anomaly. I never had any of the teenage angst years. My dad was always like practically my best friend when he came home. And but never, he was a whitetail hunter. Seemed like back in the days when you still had to catch a ferry to get across the Straits of Mackinac to go to the Upper Peninsula. But unfortunately, like when I became a teenager, somewhere in there, he lost the vision or majority of the vision in his right eye. He became really bummed about not seeing sights, not seeing a scope, not wanting to go to left-handed shooting. So I really didn't have, but it's not like my dad and I went hunting every weekend, but I had plenty of neighbors that I would go with. So that's kind of where that went with them. And so one afternoon, middle of winter, yeah, ice fishing or whatever. And here's this little Aranca Champ. I mean, just a dinky little airplane lands on skis on my lake, and then another airplane lands with it. And good, I mean, just absolutely wonderful mentor, like a second dad to me. Gary Markland gets out of the airplane, and of course, you're just a kid. You're wide-eyed, like, this is amazing. Look at this thing, and you're on the ice, and you're on. Oh, and he walks up. Hey, you want to go to lunch? Like, oh heck, do I? Well, you better go ask your mom. All right. So Gary comes up with me. Hey, can I take Kurt to lunch? We're going to go in the airplane. Of course, sure. So we, all of a 10-minute flight over to the town that's got a restaurant on another inland lake, and we have lunch. But I tell you, that flight sticks with me like no other. So from then on, I kind of hung around airports and bummed rides in the back seats of airplanes when I could. But when I was 15, I started flying, and my mom I'd go fly the airplane even after I soloed. I'd go around the patch, but I couldn't drive a car there. So my mom would drive me to the airport. I'd hop in the airplane and go places, and she'd sit and read a book. And I came back, I'd park the airplane, and she'd give me a ride home. And
oh, God bless moms.
Yeah, I know. And in college, started with the kind of the career aviation type program of maybe looking at being a commercial pilot or something like that. I'm really glad I didn't go that route, but it became a financial issue, kind of out of high school into college. The retirement out of General Motors wasn't going as great. My mom was still working, but I caught my dad cashing out some of his General Motors stock to buy some flight time in my aviation checkbook, if you will, at the school, and it broke my heart. So I thought, and I've never not had a job since probably late elementary. Summer job. I've always worked, even through college. And I'm going, I can't afford this. I can't afford just, you're looking at instrument time, commercial time, flying multi-engine aircraft. I'd have to basically take a year off, build a flight account, and fly some more. So, and I at that point, I stopped realizing, I stopped having help from mom and dad, kind of thing. I'm like, I am not breaking your bank account to just get my education. So that's kind of was the reasoning behind going to Alaska. And of course, now everything's out of my pocket and going to college and this and that. So flying took a back seat for quite a while. So about 2010 is when I got back into it, bought a experimental plane up here that I flew for a couple of years and then tore it down with kind of plans to make this, this just kick-ass bush plane and modify it up. Well, it sat in my garage for a couple of years and didn't get any work done. So I finally sold that and bought another plane about a year ago. So it was late July. So I've been flying again for about a year. Don't have a ton of hours, but yeah, the pictures I started on Trappers Inc. were I didn't care if there was a Martin in the trap or not. I was like, I'm in an airplane. I'm in the bush of Alaska. I'm doing this by myself. And yeah, I didn't care if the traps had furred them or not. I was still trapping by airplane, which was a childhood dream. So I felt like I was 10 years old again.
Well, that is so cool. Like, I mean, how far would you fly out? How big would be your trapline circuit, or would you go land on a lake and go around it, or how would you work?
So, and you run into a similar circumstance. The heart of the winter, I am dictated a lot by daylight. And there were very little of. So it was not, I guess, cost effective to go land, throw on the snowshoes and go on a 2-hour jaunt around the lake, because by then I'm on the waning side of daylight and I'd have to get in the airplane and come back. You're also looking at being outside the aircraft for a long period of time, even within a big insulated engine cover that goes over the engine to keep that heat in. If you're gone too long, it could get too cold and it's going to be dangerous, or not dangerous, but detrimental to the engine and all those nice lightweight aluminum parts to start at cold temperature. And you're then, okay, well, if I'm going to have to preheat a little bit, you're bringing more stuff into a small airplane. So you were on the ground as little as you could to keep the temperatures up. So I was pretty much lake hopping and river hopping to do. It's hit pretty hard. There's a lot of snow machine trap lines around. Quite a few airplane guys are out there although they're not looking for marten and small stuff. Most of them are looking for moose kills, wolf killed moose to run snares and do wolf trapping out of. So there's a ton of folks here local that are just hammering the wolf pop, or the best they can to hammer the wolves. So I was flying approximately, it was about 100 miles out of town, give or take 120 miles, but I could go hit, about 6 or 7 lakes, little river landings if I started right at daybreak and make it back at sunset, or just twilight coming in, but that wasn't very long. And of course, as the spring progressed, you get more daylight, so you're thinking, okay, I can set out some beaver sets, I can go hit the otter runs, I can go even jig for a rainbow trout in a lake. And then we had a horrible March up here for winter, and I hardly flew in March. It was either just the weather conditions, nobody got out, so I lost like the best month for everything. But that was it in a nutshell.
What's your shortest day? How much daylight in your shortest day?
Yeah, so that'll of course be December 21st. And I want to say we have, sun up to, because we are below, Fairbanks is a wee bit below the Arctic Circle, so it's not complete darkness, but the sunrise or sun peaks above the Alaska range. And just as you're like, oh, hey, the sun's up, it seems to go down. The sun is, I'd have to look at it, but it's not up for more than 2 hours in December 21st or thereabouts. And then you get on the either end of that a couple hours of daylight. So you're down to 4 to 6 hours is kind of what you're working with sometimes for like good usable light.
Right. That's that's interesting, because then you talk about March being your month for trapping. Like most of our stuff is wound down by then, like our marten and our fisher and wolverine and all that ends at the end of January.
Yeah, well, that a lot of our stuff end of February. I mean, just March is, I finally have daylight. I can go out and spend all day. I could go, still wolf trap. I could still in places still run some wolverine gear and get some fishing and beaver trapping. Yeah, I could spend an entire day outdoors, where in November, December, January, our big trapping months by airplane, it's take off, get very little work done, and make it back by dark. That's where the dream is to have a remote trapline cabin or a private property out there where you could fly out, base the airplane with a couple old elans, right, and go conquer the countryside on a either as a weekend warrior or as a full-time job all winter, and live kind of out of the cabin and base with the airplane. That's where that becomes an efficient means of trapping.
Right.
To have a cabin based out of, even if you were dog sledding or snowshoeing, having that cabin to base out of for 3 or 4 days. And this year I got an opportunity for the second year in a row to fly up. I have 2 friends that share a partnership in a trapline cabin up in the Brooks Range, which was just a spectacular. I mean, it's a little cabin, and they've got a eland and a tundra stashed there. And yeah, you just park the airplanes for 3 days and go explore the country like no other. I mean, it was the only other people we saw out there were there were Nat Geo filming somebody out in the wilderness come across this lake that, what the heck, there's a whole crew out here with snowshoes and this guy, and we're bombing across on the snow machines. And it's that kind of that awkward look at each other, like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Well, we trapped this area. Oh, well, we're filming this guy in the middle of nowhere. Huh. All right, we'll see ya. It's kind of
trapping on my trapline. That's what you're filming.
Yeah. Right.
As somebody who does 300 kilometers or 180 miles or whatever it is every trapline check, I lost the love of the eland a long time ago.
I know, we had that conversation, like, oh.
And then another one that everybody thought was so good was the Yamaha Bravo.
Yep.
Current trapline that I've on now, been now I think 7 years. We'll be starting our 8th this fall. It came with a Yamaha Bravo, had 125 kilometers on it. Like, it was the last year that Yamaha. Yeah, last year that
That's
Yamaha
like a
made
$6,000 sled now.
Well, yeah, I sold it for big money too. I sold it for big money because I needed something that could pull a big sled, and I needed fuel capacity. I needed that kind of mileage. how much fuel does a plane burn making that 100-mile out and back trip?
It's fuel burnt per hour. So my airplane, it's a 1978 Belanca Scout. So I'm not even going to remotely compare it to a Super Cub because nothing is a Super Cub, but it's a tandem seat, 2-seat stick and rudder old airplane or old style aircraft. So Super Cubs they are the quintessential bush plane or the variants of Super Cubs. They're slow, but that's just it. You can get into places that you can't get into any other with a Super Cub, but they're so expensive. So my airplane does really great. It's got 180 horsepower engine that I'm pretty easy on. I don't fly anywhere, even though it's a little faster than a Cub. I just never really run it hard, but I run, 8 gallons an hour, 8 to 9 gallons an hour. So you're dictating, I've got 32 gallons usable fuel caches on lakes. So the nice thing about winter flying is I can actually put plastic jerry cans with avgas stashed in the woods, and I don't have to worry about the bears. In the summer, I've got the old military style. They're clunky and they're heavy but I have the old metal jerry cans that I'll stash out in the woods, but at least the bears can't puncture them and get through your life-saving fuel. But yeah, so you're looking at if you're flying 90 to 100 miles an hour ground speed and using 8 to 9 gallons an hour with some takeoffs and landings and stuff like that. So that dictates the range. But if I carry 10 gallons with me, that's an easy get home amount.
What is an average winter then for Martin for you? Or is that what you target most, the Martin?
When I was trapping by snowmobile or snow machine heavily, yeah, Martin, that's the country I happen to have a trap line in. When I picked up from another college buddy, he and I just kind of stumbled upon an area that was vacant and ran it for a good number of years. And my buddy Leo, my fellow beaver wrangler, he still runs the country to this day, but it was just by default primary Martin country. Had a few wolves that would come through, wolverine or two in the high country. Lynx would be an anomaly on just basically pushed into areas that weren't their normal area just because of starvation. So they're covering more country looking for food. So some of the bottom river crossings that we'd go through, even though they're high alpine crossings, might hold a pocket of snowshoe hare that would bring a lynx or two in, a couple fox on the bigger rivers. But yeah, primarily Martin. And my best year, we seemed to average, and it was 35 to I think 40, 45 would be a really, really good Martin year for us. A couple wolves. If we got a wolverine once every 2-3 years, that was really, really good. And that was the best Christmas ever, is catching a wolverine. And then we'd pinch fox here and there just as kind of byproducts. But
so you have this unique perspective. Alaska is a free-for-all state when it comes to trapping. Nobody owns a trap line, and
it is.
You know where I'm going.
It's I do, and it's
because you're in law enforcement, so you must have heard complaints that somebody's moved in on somebody else's trap line, and you just talked about how your buddy found one that had been vacant, and how does it work? I mean, how
it's tough, and anything I use I think it's probably growing, but I use the 100-mile circumference of Alaska or Fairbanks. Just assume someone's trapping it. And then another thing that's what makes it so difficult, there's only, let's see, you have out of Fairbanks, you have one road that wise. You take a right and it's the Steese Highway, and 140 miles later, you dead end at the Yukon River Central and Circle area. If you veer left, you're on the Elliott, and that takes you all the way to Prudhoe Bay. Leaving town, you can go, if you're heading south, you take a left and it'll take you eventually to Valdez. If you take a right, it'll take you to Anchorage. That's it. We don't have a network of township roads, of a grid system, we just don't have a road infrastructure. We have 4 main highways that go out of the state, kind of thing. So every little trail that's accessible by snowmobile, I keep using that. That's my Michigander. Everybody up here doesn't know what I'm talking about when I say snowmobile, but there's just access to the country is minuscule. So that's
Right.
where any access, any trailhead, even the trap line that we found, we shared it with a guy who's, God, was an awesome guy. Made the best lure back in the day, but he had a grizzly bear hide for a seat cover, no less than like 3 guns strapped on him at any time, was like 6'7", looked like a demented elf riding a wide track, right? And they caught him killing his chickens out of a trapping box because he thought the blood all over it. It was hilarious. I'm like, what in the world? He's up in the woods at a marten set and there's chicken blood and feathers flying everywhere. But we shared, the beginning couple miles with him. He'd go left off into the valleys and we'd go right. But yeah, that's the hardest part, is the conflict of you literally up here, and they're all going to be multi-use trails. You can say, this is my trap line. You could go in there and cut a trail, but if it's usable, someone's going to find it and use it, whether it's someone on snowshoes on the weekend, cross-country skis, you're out on a fat, tired mountain bike, other people are going to use it. So you could have a marten set and 3 feet away, I could put a marten set, and there is nothing. So you try to instill, like the Trappers Association, we teach a pretty good trapping school for beginners and experienced people alike. And you try to instill that code of ethics of, even if I put it to hunting or fishing, you're back in your walleye tournament days, are you going to be nose to nose with somebody like, oh, this is a good spot, and you're going to sneak right up on that person because you got the rest of the lake, or you're glassing for moose in this little valley and 4 more people, are sitting next to you looking at the same moose. But is it legal? Yes. Is it ethical? No. But when does that ever play into account, right?
The biggest problem with those situations is that we end up then trying to make laws
Yep.
that regulate ethics, and ethics and morality are things that are law just doesn't have the ability to grasp the essence of it. And it's that thing about integrity. It's doing the right thing even when nobody's watching.
Absolutely.
And I think for a lot of people, when they come to a place like Alaska or like northern Alberta, or they just expect that it's just a free-for-all and that there's nobody else there, and that wherever they wander, it's up to them. I have lots of friends like from you talk about Michigan and that, and they'll show me a picture of traps under a bridge, and one will be theirs and there'll be 9 other traps under there. They're all trying to catch a mink or whatever. And I understand the difficulty of it. I mean, some people are doing it inadvertently, others are don't care, they figured that they have the right, so that makes it perfectly acceptable. I don't know. I know that in Canada, we ended up with our registered trapline system in order to force people to utilize the entire, and actually it was more to protect the animals, because that small area around a major city or whatever would get trapped very heavily, and it would upset the balance. I've often been accused of saying that trappers don't affect populations, and they don't in a regulated system. But if you have an unregulated number of trappers, targeting a small area, of course you have to. I mean, it's no different than we've just about managed to net out the sea full of fish, or what happened with bluefin tuna and how that had to be regulated. I mean, there is a possibility of being able to overdo it. So when they set up the registered trapline system in Alberta, it was just so that it was protecting the animals, and that only one person could trap this many square miles, and then next and on it went. And in effect, I mean, it helped with our fur records and the quality of fur in that, because it's further north you got and there are some trap lines up there that are 30 townships.
Hey, Rich here. Sandy and I are pleased at the rapid growth of our exclusive community, Trapping Inc. at locals.com. We created the community to connect more closely with our fans, friends, and supporters without the interference and censorship of social media companies. Because this community is subscriber exclusive, there is no censored photos, shadow banning, and deplatforming as happens on Twitter and Facebook. Trolls are non-existent, as not a one will spend a nickel and put their money where their mouth is to protest on a paid site. You know it. We are steadily moving all Trapping Inc. YouTube videos and podcasts as quickly as time and bandwidth allow. We're tickled and surprised to see how large of library we must move. As well, we are sharing articles on trapping and guns and shooting. Our new TV series, Married to the Hunt, videos are here too. Hours and hours of never before released to the internet hunting and fishing from around the world. TrappingInc.locals.com will be the exclusive home of all Trapping Inc. content from the past and into the future. What else is there to do? Well, there's a forum for everyone to post pictures on and interact. You can message us directly on TrappingInc.locals.com, as well as interact with all the other subscribers. These are all people with common interests. Get in here. This whole venture is about taking the Trapping Inc. TV community to the next level, building a community of shared interest and interacting with all of our friends. Who knows where we can go from here? Just go to locals.com and sign up for a free account. Then search for Trapping Inc. and subscribe for $5 a month. That's it. Go to locals.com to open a free account and then subscribe for $5 a month to Trapping Inc. Help us spread the truth about a way of life and the responsible, ethical management of the wild resources. TrappingInc.locals.com. Now back to the show.
They're just monsters. Yeah, 30 townships. Mine's 4. Mine's 4. You are involved with the Alaska Trappers Association.
Yeah, I've been a lifetime member for a long time, and gosh, that's if give one any big advice to anybody that listens is, join your local Trappers Association, join the National Trapper, join these organizations that are helping out, because believe it or not, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that's done, and for the legal issues and stuff that's at play, you're going to need somebody to fight that fight. And Alaska Trappers Associations, it's out there. It's not loved by all, and I never expect it to be, but we are truly in it for the heritage and the individual trapper. So, but it's cool to get together with a a group of folks. It could be the oldest old timer on a Monday night meeting to these kids that are running around and winning raffles and drawings. But that's the next generation, and you gotta instill that on and keep the next generation carrying on this heritage, because that's what it is, and it's a piece of history. And I'm doing the same thing. What Northern Michigan was founded upon was the lumber trade and the fur trade. And I feel like every time I drag a beaver out of the ice, I think this is what founded America right here. It wasn't the gold rush, wasn't anything. It was beaver. It was crazy.
My favorite story is about the rendezvous, and Alberta has quite a well-renowned rendezvous, or we haven't for the last 2 years. We're hoping to have one again soon here after this stupidity. But yeah, don't get me. We'll be here for forever. But my favorite story is our longtime president of the Alberta Trap Association. At one of his speeches, Gordy Clausen said, he says, where else can you go where everybody gets together and we have kids running everywhere? He says it's families.
Yep.
There's kids running everywhere. Every one of them has a sharp knife in his pocket, and we expect them to cut something with it.
Yeah.
And it summed it all up. And this little guy later that day, the little guy comes around to our booth, and he's talking, and his eyes are all big, and because he's talking to me, and I'm on TV, and I'm trying to just break the ice with him, like I'm just a regular guy, and he's got this bandage on his finger, and he keeps kind of pushing it back on, right? This is what happened. And his mom says, oh, well, he had to test how sharp his knife was, and kid is kind of, scuffing his foot and keep pushing this bandage back on.
Yeah.
I says, you need a new bandage. And his mother rolls her eyes, and she says, tell him where you got that one. And the little kid finally managed to say, I found it on the floor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I couldn't quit laughing. It was so funny. But I mean, God, that was me at that age. I mean, if I was making a mess with the blood, you'd put a piece of tape on it or something. But I mean,
Yeah.
we found it on the floor and that was good enough. And
Yep. It works.
that's just the kind of normalcy that is so missing in today's world, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
And kids are so much the future. Did you want to talk about your family, your kids, and how you're bringing them up for the future?
Oh boy. As good as I can. How's that?
Sure.
Yeah, I tell both my daughters I'll never miss a day without telling them I love them, because that's the truth. And unfortunately, my line of work and the realities of it is I walk out the door every day and I don't know when that day is that I might not walk back through that door. But regardless of my line of work, everybody has that. You could, a car crash or something
Yep.
could happen. So I think everybody has to, without dwelling on the negativity, you have to just take every day as a positive and instill that in your kids that, the family elements there, your dad's there, love is there. And but I think I have an unusual circumstance with my youngest daughter. My wife and I just got guardianship over her at 18. So I'm dealing with a girl that's got a severe developmental intellectual disability. And I tell you what, she, like I wrote you, she's got more grit in hunting and trapping and fishing than most adults I know. This
Yeah.
girl hunts hard. And I'll have her as a hunting partner for life. But there was some difficulties that we saw early on with the challenges that we were going to have raising her. But that's one thing that has never waned. That girl's loved the outdoors, loved to fish and pole, loves to trap, loves to hunt more than anything. So it's taken a turn with me where you ask, like, I'd be happy, she carried a marten back that we caught, and she carried it back in a nice warm day in the back of the airplane. But man, it was a huge deal for her. And she caught 3 marten this year, and she can make her own or have it tanned and make her own hat for her. And it's just part of the, get your kids outside regardless of where you're at, if they're neurotypical or the most autistic kid on the spectrum, or handicapped in a different way. Get them out there. They truly love this stuff. Their time with mom and dad, and you'll find they have true talents that are beyond and above and beyond what neurotypical people have. And like I said, she knows her way around the woods, and she knows what to look for in animals. Her tracking is amazing. Her shot placement on animals is great, because her intensity and focus is so much. There's no one I'd rather have in a bear blind with me in the spring than her to back me up. So yeah, it's incredible. And just you're taking the extra time to dress the kids properly, make sure they have the right gear. Don't be so fixated on I've got to shoot this moose or catch this fish that you're not stopping for the all quintessential snack breaks, and make sure the comforts are there for your kids. And if they're happy, and even when they're a little miserable in the weather, they're still darn happy, because you're taking care of them and getting them out there.
Because you're there. Because
Yeah.
you're there. That's the big deal. I told my kids as they were all growing up, especially my boys, and I said to them, I says, being a dad's a life sentence.
Yeah.
And they look at me like, and now they have their own kids. And I says,
Yep.
You understand that? Oh yeah. I said, so when I tell you something, remember, I'm still your dad,
Yeah.
and the ability to share something, it doesn't matter what their skills or whether they're neurotypical or not neurotypical. The ability to share something is an incredible bond. And my hat's off to you to have found something that is so important to her,
Yeah.
and that can give her focus in her life. That's so much of the world today. So many of very people who are just throwing away wonderful lives because they have no focus,
No.
and you have found, a focus with her together that is incredible. You were had mentioned that she loves cross-country skiing, and that she was trying out for the Olympic team.
Yeah, so she's no. I grew up in alpine skiing, so downhill.
Okay.
And she is, again, that's my wife and I, when we were dating, skied the little bumps in Michigan together, but we came up here, and the mountaineering aspect was different than getting on a chairlift and skiing at your local resort. But we decided to get the family back into skiing a few years back. So, except for my rogue oldest daughter, who had to try a snowboard, but hey, I still love her. So
that's my youngest boy.
Yeah. So Tegan picks up skiing, and I might as well just go jump into this thing whole hog and my wife and I became coaches for Special Olympics Alaska. So we have our team of Special Olympians. I've got a good friend that he does the snowboard side of coaching, but the team is pretty compatible as far as ability. So we have our skiers and snowboarders together every Saturday that it's above 20 below, and we train. So it was in spring of 2019, our local games. So we're prepping up for state games right about that crazy C19er hits the country. But anyway, so I'm the gate setter. I go set up. We have the news crew here, and my daughter's hot dogging is a warm up run, because of course there's a camera rolling at the bottom, and it wasn't like this, Lindsey Vaughn tumbled through 4 million gates at 70 miles an hour. It was a simple, I don't even call it a crash. She just kind of twisted a ski and went down at kind of the end of the course. I don't see it. My oldest daughter's with her, and by the time they get on the chairlift and up where I'm at the starting gate, she's kind of got a tear in her eye, and oh, my knee hurts. Like, walk it off. Come on, suck it up. You can do this. And no, really, I'm like, no,
the year award right here.
Yeah. So come on, it's nothing. And my daughter's like, yeah, she fell, but it didn't look horrible. And okay, let's go. So I put her in the gates. She skis that day all through the competition. I can't remember if it was like slalom and giant slalom. Does her 2 runs, and then the next day we're going to come back and do Super G and then awards. So I make her ski race all 2 days, and every night just ice in the knee. Well, a couple days later, it's like, this swelling isn't going down. We go in like, oh no, she probably should have an MRI. Yeah, found out she totally, like, not even just, it blew her ACL. So yeah, but and then we didn't go to state because of course the injury, and then COVID put all the restrictions on everything, and we'll see where we're going. We're slated, or she is selected for the US Special Olympics Alpine Ski Team to race in Kazan, Russia in the spring of 2022, but we'll see how all that works out. We still don't know. We're anxiously awaiting word, but I don't know if it'll happen, but we're ever hopeful, because it'd be really cool to see her in that setting as a world-class athlete. And
yeah,
but yeah, getting that knee repaired, one of the biggest things on her mind was that spring was she needed to be able to climb the ladder into the black bear blind and get in and out of the float plane to get her bear that year. So every picture, she did get a bear that year or last year, and every picture, it's like her right leg is sticking out in a way because she can't quite bend her knee and hold it that way yet. So it was pretty cool. She got cleared by the doctor to go bear hunting, and that's what she did.
I can identify with her so much. I totally did an MCL on a mountain in New Zealand in a big rainstorm and whatever. Oof. The next day I get out of bed and my wife and I were sleeping in this little tiny bunk bed. So we were like spooned in there, and she says, get up, time to get up. And so I try to get up, and I sit there, and my knee is my leg goes out like this and then straight down. Just where you're going to get dressed. I said, I can't straighten my leg. I said, can you pull on my leg? She said, oh yeah, I played this game before, right?
Yeah. If I pull your finger, we're not going there.
It was totally froze on me. And so she pulls it, and I really had no pain or anything with it, but yeah, it was when I came back, and it's still to this day, it's really sloppy. And it's easier for me to just go plop and fall off the mountain and that kind of stuff, because it'll hyperextend and all that sort of thing. But I identify with her. Tough girl, tough girl, tougher than I was.
Yeah, she is. She's
well.
Fearless.
What's up for the future then? Now you said that you're going to. I'm just killing our national bird mosquito here.
Yeah, you got them too, eh?
Oh yeah, not as many this year with the heat, but and the dry. But last couple of years were absolutely horrible. You try and walk the dogs every night. First time ever that you know how hard it is to get an 86-pound dog to stand still so you can spray them with bug repellent. You know, they would just be
you've got short-haired Weimaraner, and so that's.
Yeah. And it was so bad. We would put more clothes on than you would when it was 0 Fahrenheit out there because of the bugs, and you had to put on head nets and everything just to go walk we have the home quarter here. Of course, by the time you walk around it, that's 2 miles, and got to walk the dogs every night. And it was brutal. So last year I never got to wear a pair of shorts once. This year I've worn them for a couple of weeks now. And so my legs had a couple of years soak at being white, and now they're getting some color anyway. But you're saying you got a year and a half to go, and then you're going to be leaving your career. What then? What's your plans, Kurt?
Boy, that's a great question. I keep pondering. It's definitely going to have to do with aviation. So whether I don't want to get tied down, I really don't want to get tied down to another 60-hour plus work week. I kind of want to be able to dictate. So I contemplated just kind of that, the fix it kind of guy in all of us. Your snow machine, you break down in the middle of nowhere, you got to fix it to get out. And the mechanics aspect of the aviation is really intrigued me, and just to be able to be self-sufficient. So maybe go to airframe and power plant school, see where that goes. You get a part-time job at one of the operators here. There's no shortage of needing an airplane mechanic, or getting a couple more ratings. I don't think I was a big game guide for a year before entering my career, and it is so overrated on TV. I mean, you get those really good people, you get some good clients, but you talk babysitting rich people, and it's not everybody, but my particular clients that I had back in the day was, basically babysitting rich people who had nothing more than a dollar value to an animal.
Yep.
I want the biggest. It's not, I don't care about the experience. I just want to take me up this hill and find me the biggest moose, or the biggest grizzly bear, or the biggest. And I just wanted to take to my office, and heaven forbid, because it's me and a client at that particular year, we didn't even have packers, dropped off by a super cub in the middle of nowhere. I'm sorry, you got to help butcher this thing. And they were, I got in an argument with a guy because he just wanted the head. That's all I want. What are you doing? Skinning this thing and taking the quarters off and cooling them. And it's going to be dark, and you're going to make me hike back to camp in this grizzly infested countryside. And how dare you? And he absolutely was just livid that I'm taking care of meat first and head second. And so the aviation industry, there's always a need for dropping off people on sandbars with rafts to do a rafting trip, or self-guided stuff. There is a local area that I've looked at working for as a guide again, but he specializes in archery hunters, and it's no time it's a really easy laid back. And I think an archery hunter understands the things a little bit more, but that's always in the cards. The Alaska, like we were mentioned a little bit, has the ability to be remote if you trap an area for like up to 3 years. If you can prove kind of state land, which there's bajillions of acres up here, if you can prove that, okay, you've kind of prospected this area, trapped this area, whether it's a river system, a lake system, mountain system, and you can apply through the Department of Natural Resources for a trapline cabin. Okay. And you put a lease on it basically by the square footage. So they make it where they don't want you to have a 20 by 30 home out there. You like 12 by 16 is a doable structure for a trapping cabin. You have to, pay that lease for square footage on any outbuildings or things like that. And it's written in there that it is trapping only. You could lose the permit if you go up there and turn it into a moose camp or something like that. It is only for trapping, but you could base out of it. So it's finding that place in Alaska that isn't taken by a remote trap line, that it's country that's going to produce, that you're not. A dear friend of mine he just finished his second cabin on a remote trap line, that really great country. And unfortunately the cycle of events, he lost a brand new cabin, an outbuilding, 2 or 3 snowmobiles to a forest fire. He literally just burned it all to the ground. You're not in a fire suppression area. You're just at the whim of Mother Nature. So there's always that, but I would like to see that. That's a childhood thing that's always been in the back of my mind is, everybody should kind of get a chance to be the Marty Mariottos of the world and fly out into a remote cabin in the Brooks Range and do the trapping lifestyle or the HIMOs of the world and live out in the woods for an entire trapping season and come back for for some staples here and there. But I'm going to do that before I get too old and gray, but I will spend a winter on a remote trap line.
Oh, that's cool. And what a great thing to do. Like, I mean, I get to do it all the time, so I'm kind of spoiled that way.
Yeah, you still have that, even that you're still that connection. You load up the truck and go home kind of thing.
Yeah, true enough.
You're never fully out of touch of I'm here. I'm all yeah. No, I know what you're saying. Yep.
Well, I've got to wrap this up. We have been going for an hour and a half. I'm supposed to take my wife for lunch. And so I'm gonna wrap this up. It has been a pleasure, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise.
Yes, we'll do it again. And I will probably have this up in a week's time or so. You take care.
You do the same, Rich, and say hi to Sandy and enjoy the rest of your hot summer. All right, my friend.
All right, take care, and thank you everybody for watching. Watch for this to come up here in the next week or so. Maybe we'll see you down the line.
Hey, Rich here. Sandy and I are pleased at the rapid growth of our exclusive community, Trapping Inc. at locals.com. We created the community to connect more closely with our fans, friends, and supporters without the interference and censorship of social media companies. Because this community is subscriber exclusive, there is no censored photos, shadow banning, and deplatforming as happens on Twitter and Facebook. Trolls are non-existent, as not a one will spend a nickel and put their money where their mouth is to protest on a paid site. You know it. We are steadily moving all Trapping Inc. YouTube videos and podcasts as quickly as time and bandwidth allow. We're tickled and surprised to see how large of library we must move. As well, we are sharing articles on trapping and guns and shooting. Our new TV series, Married to the Hunt, videos are here too. Hours and hours of never before released to the internet hunting and fishing from around the world. TrappingInc.locals.com will be the exclusive home of all Trapping Inc. content from the past and into the future. What else is there to do? Well, there's a forum for everyone to post pictures on and interact. You can message us directly on TrappingInc.locals.com, as well as interact with all the other subscribers. These are all people with common interests. Get in here. This whole venture is about taking the Trapping Inc. TV community to the next level, building a community of shared interest and interacting with all of our friends. Who knows where we can go from here? Just go to locals.com and sign up for a free account. Then search for Trapping Inc. and subscribe for $5 a month. That's it. Go to locals.com to open a free account and then subscribe for $5 a month to Trapping Inc. Help us spread the truth about a way of life and the responsible, ethical management of the wild resources. TrappingInc.locals.com. Now back to the show.